Welcome to PLU. I'm so glad you are here, and we look forward to getting to know you. You are starting college during a very important time, and we hope that your college experience equips you to be leaders in a world with a lot of challenges and in need of good minds and hearts like yours. I'm Serja Hay. I'm a professor in the philosophy department and the director of the Wild Hope Center for Vocation. I'm here to introduce a word that you will hear a lot during your time at PLU, vocation. In this short presentation, I'll talk about 3 questions. What does vocation mean? Why does it matter at PLU? And what could vocation mean for you? Let's start with the meaning. This is not an everyday word, is it? In fact, maybe you've never heard it before today. Some of the definitions you may be more familiar with and related to the word vocation are words like calling and purpose, career, or passion. These are more recognizable words. Perhaps some of you might have heard that vocation is a call to religious service, to the clergy, or to the church. Some of you might have heard it used synonymously with job training, as in vocational technical school or a trade. And while these words are all related to vocation and help us understand what we mean by it, they tend to reduce or diminish the meaning to mean only job training or only the thing that makes you happy. It is, in fact, difficult to define vocation using only one word. The most literal definition is calling, and we can understand calling in various ways. What's important for you to recognize is that PLU's definition of vocation offers something different than these one-word definitions might offer you. First, it's bigger and broader. It's not just one of these things, it can be many of these things. And these things can change. What you were really excited about as a child often differs from what you were really excited about in high school, and may differ again from what you might be excited about by the time you graduate from PLU. Second, all of these words seem to focus on you, the individual. And certainly vocation is about you, but again, in part, it is also about the needs of others. PLU works with a definition of vocation, one that is closely tied to our university mission and includes how your purpose contributes to a bigger picture and a greater good. A definition that compels us to live with intention and thoughtfulness. The Wild Hope Center uses the definition of being called into relationship with others to promote human and ecological flourishing. Our understanding of vocation must include both of these things, our purpose and the needs of others. In turn, it's the role of the community, PLU's faculty, staff, and other students, to provide both challenge and support, opportunities and affirmation. It might help to think of PLU as a learning laboratory, a place for you to discover who you are and what you care about, a place to train your mind and to have experiences that will help you address these cares. Questions about vocation will come up at different times during your experience here, maybe most strongly as you approach graduation and begin to think about what you will choose to do. But it is relevant to now, even before you start to explore and select a major or seriously consider and prepare for your career path. You can begin by thinking about the vocation of a college student. Who do you want to be as a LUT? How do you want to spend your time here? We are committed to academic excellence and educating students so that you can achieve professional goals after your time here. And we want to do more for you than that. This school developed out of an educational tradition that understands education to be about the development of complete persons with distinct and multiple identities and who develop and hold important values. Because of our university's history and identity, we are not embarrassed to enter into these kinds of personal conversations about values and living with purpose and meaning. But instead, we embrace these opportunities because we know this reflection is necessary for a well-lived and fully conscious life. Now we know what vocation is at PLU and how it's connected to our university's history and identity, but what might vocation mean for you? I can think of many things, but I will start with the word engagement. Put more simply, vocation is another opportunity for you to engage deeply and meaningfully with your PLU education. In addition to PLU offering a deep and broad meaning of vocation, a PLU education offers you opportunities to explore, discover, and discern your vocation. Some of what you may discover on this journey may surprise you. You may encounter things you didn't anticipate. You may be thinking, I already know what I want to major in, or what career I am aiming for. But remember, vocation is more than that. Certainly, it is about your major and potential careers, but also what kind of life you want to create and what kind of priorities inform that life. PLU offers you specific academic pathways that you may feel called or drawn to, and additional opportunities for you to continue to discover who you are, what kinds of values you have, and what kind of future you want to be a part of creating. We invite you to look and listen for these opportunities in various ways, even though this fall may not be the experience you anticipated having. Classes may be held in unfamiliar formats like blended or online. Leadership and co-curricular opportunities will look different and include virtual ways to participate. Even so, we encourage you to continue to look for these opportunities. Take a risk. Have a hard conversation with somebody. Have a conversation with someone who disagrees with you or who is not like you. All of these things are part of what it means to be in college. Next, let me introduce you to some fabulous students working with us at the center this year. First, we have Becca McKinley, a senior and a social work major. Second, we have Raina LaFave Clark, a senior and a nursing major. Third, we have Emma Christensen, a junior and a music education major. You can expect to hear more about opportunities related to vocation from these three students in the coming year. Next, we want to turn it over to your JAM group leaders. They will play for you 2 lute talks. The first is from a fellow lute, Andrew Larson, class of 2015, and he talks about the 10 moments during his time at PLU that he had no idea what he was doing. His words, not mine. And illustrates how discerning vocation is not a straight line, but more of a journey.
Awesome. Thank you, Mercy. So I want to take you through 10 moments in the past 4-ish years where I had no idea what I was doing. But from these moments, I came to reflect and to see how my passions have developed and changed, and how they've also become deepened and become more nuanced. Now, these stories range across different countries, extremely different circumstances, and usually with a confused look on my face. But they do demonstrate that vocation is an evolving process, and that one can find comfort and even excitement in the unknown. Hopefully by hearing some of my stories, you'll be able to reflect on your own passions and how you can deepen and become more nuanced, even if you also, like me, have no idea what you're doing. So I take you to my first day of PLU, eager and giddy, looking like a child with no beard, probably wearing orange Crocs. As any new first year, I was full of ideas that my high school self had generated. As a high schooler, I was often overwhelmed with thinking about all the atrocities and injustices in the world and feeling like I couldn't really, do anything to change them. My mother, a compassionate and caring person and also a first grade teacher, of course had a story to alleviate some of my fears and anxieties. A story about a starfish, you might know this story, where there's actually dozens of starfish stranded on a beach, and there's a singular person going by, picking them up, throwing them back into the ocean, even to the confusion to the onlookers. Knowing he could never throw all the starfish back into the ocean, but it made a small difference in each starfish he picked up and plopped back into the sea. But that left me with some questions. Who would be my starfish in college? How would I make a difference in my community? What sort of things would I have to study to affect change? I wasn't sure, but as a confident high school senior, I decided to come up with a life plan anyways, and thought that I'd become a doctor and study biology, since an 18-year-old has a good grasp of what they want to do with the world. Doctors, to me, seemingly was the perfect answer to my conundrum. They got paid decently well, so they could use their own financial resources to help others, while also having a tangible impact through the health and medicine and care that they can provide. Great, I had life figured out. But as the semester kept going, I was beginning to wonder if I was really doing this college thing right. Why am I in college? What am I doing here? It was always the notion that college would be the next step. It wasn't, are you going to college? The question is, which college are you going to? In addition to these questions, I was beginning to wonder if I really wanted to be a doctor. Did I really want to keep studying biology? I wasn't really sure about the whole thing, and these questions stuck through me through Christmas break and into January. January, I decided to take a break from tests and some biological systems and chemistry and all of that. I took an anthropology course about cultural responses to disaster. Throughout J-term, I continued to grapple with the questions of what I wanted to study. How did I want to make a meaningful impact in the world? Well, I came up with an answer. The night before spring semester, I completely dropped all of my biology and chem classes and did a complete 180. But with this answer came a new question and a sense of panic. What the hell am I doing? You can notice the snowpocalypse from my first year here, if you guys remember that. I thought I had no direction in what I wanted to study, but in reality, I had assessed what was important to me and what I valued. I wanted to learn more about the relationships and how dialogue happens in communities. I was interested in people themselves. What lenses do they view the world? What was at stake for them? This was shaped by my anthropology course and other classes such as my IHON class with Dr. Torvund. The year concluded, I survived my first year. It was good. After the conclusion of my first year, I went to Flathead Lutheran Bible Camp as a camp counselor. Once again, I was thrown into a situation where I had no idea what I was doing, out of my comfort zone, didn't know what was going on. I was first greeted driving down the camp road in a hot dog costume man playing a bongo. While this picture isn't a person in a hot dog costume, it does demonstrate the new challenges and often willingness to just go for it that camp entails. I only knew one other person going into camp. I hadn't been a counselor before. Am I really going to put face paint on and some fairy wings and go hide out in the woods for kids to come and find me? Yes. Am I really going to try to facilitate conversations with middle schoolers about evil, hell, and is God really good? Yes. While camp is full of crazy, weird, and exciting moments, it has once again shown me what I was passionate about. I realized I loved working with kids in ministry and education, meeting them where they're at, understanding the lenses that they viewed their world. Camp compelled me enough to go back a second year, and I'm even going back again this summer as an on-site director. But camp did more than just give meaning to my work with children and youth. It shaped my friend group. I surrounded myself with people who are also committed to making a meaningful difference in the world. We asked the same questions, or challenged by similar issues. Now, camp activity you may be familiar with is the idea of the practice of affirmations. Campers' affirmations may be more like, you play basketball well, or I like your hair. Or one that I got is, you don't smell bad, which was a pretty winning affirmation for the summer. But there is amazing support from your peers, the pastors, the youth directors that bring their church groups, and even the parents. But affirmations, you learn to kind of love and hate them. While at camp, I reflected on these affirmations and what I was to do with them. In a certain regard, I think all of us kind of just want somebody to tell us exactly what we're going to do, to give us the answer, to bring back that sense of security. And an affirmation can do that. But I didn't want to be trapped. What if I don't want to work in outdoor ministry? Maybe I really don't want to hear that you think I would make a good pastor. But maybe I do. I think affirmations are a challenge for many of us, not knowing how to incorporate them and respond to them in our vocational journeys. But camp isn't about staying there forever. We're actually called out to be sent out into community. And I knew I wanted to study away, and PLU offers amazing study away opportunities with around half of our students studying away within their 4 years. I wanted to study away in Ghana, Africa. I filled out the whole application. I was ready to go. But the more I thought about it, I developed all these preconceived notions of what it would be like, hitting all these numerous expectations. So I scrapped the whole process, started over, decided I wasn't going to Ghana. And my next step to figure out where I wanted to study away is I got out a globe, and I spun a globe. I actually spun a globe. I had no idea which country I would land on, but my finger landed in Eastern Europe, and I found a peace and conflict studies program in the former Yugoslavia. So on a plane, I went to Serbia, Bosnia, and Kosovo. This is Sarajevo in Bosnia-Herzegovina. But I soon discovered that I was deeply passionate about peace and conflict studies as a discipline. It helped to answer some of my challenging questions. It incorporated different lenses through its interdisciplinary ways. And it placed what was at stake for different communities, asked why it motivated them. While on my study away, I stayed in a Serb Orthodox monastery in western Kosovo for a week. First, I literally had no idea where I was going while I was trying to hike through these woods, finding this monastery where everybody spoke Albanian. But also when I was with the monks, which only 2 spoke English, I was able to reflect on where I had been and where I wanted to go. I realized that I was interested in community responses to political violence and how ethnic religious conflicts can be understood, along with the history, cultural values, and creation of ethnicity and how that incorporates into peace and conflict. I became passionate about peace and conflict studies, resulting in 2 capstone projects related to ethno-religious conflict, and even a summer in Norway dedicated to peace studies. This is a lake near our dorms in Oslo that Amy and I, as peace scholars, along with the other peace scholars, would often go and walk around. One night around Songsvan, we asked each other the hard questions, or if to put PLU language, the big enough questions. What is exactly peace? How do I affect peace in my community and throughout the world? Can peace even be accomplished? How does my sense of vocation fit into this vague concept of peace building? We definitely didn't have the answers, but we still wanted to work towards peace and learn more. This is also probably the most normal face of all the photos of me, so how does all this fit in? Where does my academic work and co-curriculars mesh with my passions for working with kids, different communities, and working towards peace? As I said, my passions have manifested themselves in my capstone projects and other coursework. But co-curriculars, I'm not really sure. I'm not sure how planning Lollapalooza and Spring Formal fits into vocation, or giving tours to prospective students. But it is important to hash out differences between what are passions, maybe some hobbies, interests, and some things that are just there for us to make us happy. I don't think vocation fits neatly into a box. So as I stated earlier, I want to take you through 4+ years of my vocational journey. So the ever-present question comes up when on the phone with your grandma. What are you going to do after college? I'm sure all the seniors in the room love that question. Well, it's pretty self-explanatory how this deals with vocation. And for my answer is, I'm not sure. But I am comfortable sitting in the unknown, and as I said at the beginning, maybe you can learn to sit more in the unknown as well. And the questions, they don't go away. I'm currently struggling with everybody's fan favorite, Frederick Buechner. Everybody loves his quote about vocation, where our deep gladness should meet a deep hunger. But if I'm to take this deep gladness aspect seriously, should the question not be which community do you want to serve after college, instead of what do you want to do after college? The forces live in tension. And I'm not sure how to balance that, but I'm sure I'll continue to have questions and moments where I have no idea what I'm doing. Thank you.
The second video is from a former community director, Mercy Daramola. Mercy discusses the importance of story.
Okay, cool. So my little talk is why do stories matter? So To understand why Loot Talks, why stories matter, you need to learn a little bit more about me, Mercy Daramola, and need to go a little bit back in history to know Mercy the little girl. Mercy the little girl was an avid reader. I loved reading. I read every and anything in sight. I was public enemy #1 of librarians because I would come in and take all the books and create my own little library and never quite share them back with the library. But I was loved by teachers and best friends with authors because those were stories that I could find myself a part of. I would read every and anything and get a hand in and hand on. And because I had older sisters, I read things I probably shouldn't read at 10 years old. But I loved reading. I loved stories. So stories and the worlds that authors created became my home for a lot of my development as a child growing up. And understanding why I love stories, you need to learn a little bit more about me as well, is because I'm Nigerian American. And growing up in Los Angeles in Southern California, being a part of a community that was predominantly African American, but being a child of first generation Nigerian parents, I wasn't always quite in a community where I felt I fit. So at home, I was either not quite Nigerian enough because I didn't quite know the language, I didn't quite know the customs, but then out in the world outside of my home, I wasn't quite American enough. I'd had too little of knowledge of popular culture or just knowing what America meant because I have the framework of being a kind of in between those worlds. So for me, I found my home in stories, in authors, in the worlds that were created by anyone who can access them by reading and understanding them. And so my love for stories has grown with me. Fast forward a few years later, I'm not old, but I'm older, to my role today. I, as an RD here at PLU, I have had the honor of being able to hear so many stories over my past 3 years of PLU. I've heard stories of the breadth and depth of the human emotion, from pain, from grief, from loss, to triumph, to challenge, to overcoming. Amazing stories I've had a chance to sit with people and hear and see them grow. But these aren't my stories to tell. So as I walk across campus, I know the student, they had this experience. I know this person, they had this experience that I was able to be a part of. But I can't share that story in the way I can share a story of authors. So what do? And that's where the love and the passion for Loot Talks came up. It's our store version of TED Talks, but it's also an opportunity for me to have the people within the PLU community share their stories. There's so many stories of people that walk among us that we might not know, and this is a venue of being able to share just a little bit about the passions that bring us to where we are today. Fast forwarding, or kind of going into a time warp about Mercy from the child I was as a reader to where I am now, I realized as part of my storytelling love that you reach a saturation point. There's a point where you can no longer just be an observer of stories. You have to then begin to tell your own. You need to know your own. And recently this quote came across my world, and it rocked my world. It's by Audre Lorde, and it says, "Tell them about how you're never really a whole person if you remain silent, because there's always that one little piece inside of you that wants to be spoken out. And if you keep ignoring it, it gets madder and madder and hotter and hotter, and if you don't speak it out one day, it'll just up and punch you in the mouth from the inside." So this quote resonated with me because it's very visual. Like, I just imagine a fist in my mouth, kind of horror movie story. Like, it's like, what's going on here? But it's actually true. For a long time, I felt scared to share my story because what if a person didn't understand it? What if they didn't hold the weight of my story? So I felt scared to share what it means to be me, to share my passions, to share my interests. And those of you who know me know that I'm very vibrant, but I'm also very reserved, right? So there's a part of me that I don't like showing because I wasn't sure, is my story valuable enough and will it be held with enough weight with the person I'm sharing it with or the community I'm sharing it with? But this quote has helped me realize something that's true in my life. At a point, it doesn't matter if you can't hold my story, because I need to tell it in order to be able to live. I fully believe that if you don't tell your story, if you don't tell who you are, you will die. Not literally, hopefully, but within you. Every time someone has the opportunity to tell something about you that's not true, every time you suffocate a part of you by not expressing it, there's a part of you that dies a little bit inside. And so, bringing it back to Loot Talks, this is an opportunity for the PLU community to hear these stories of the people within us every day that we pass by that we might not know who they are. And so as you go throughout this morning's block and hopefully other Loot Talks, because there's 2 more sessions, I hope that you also do what I did. Sit and be an observer. Sit and listen and soak in these stories, but don't stop there. let this quote really resonate with you and let your story come out. So listen to the stories, but also think about what is your own story? What is it about you or about where you are, who you are, how you show up, and where you're going that this community needs to know? Today, there will be a workshop in the very last session where it will be a storytelling workshop, because that's part of my passion about Loot Talks. It's not just hearing the stories, but you need to leave with the ability to know and own and share your own story. And sharing your story doesn't mean that you need to go on in the front of the pulpit on Sunday, kick your pastor to the side and say, I have a story to tell. Nope, that might not work. Right, Dennis? That might not work. You probably shouldn't go to the grocery store and stand on the cash machine and say, hey, everyone, this is my story. That also might not work. But you need to find for you, what are the everyday moments? What are the everyday opportunities for you to share what it is that you're passionate about and who you are? So I hope that you today listen to the stories, but also start thinking about what is your own Loot Talk? What is your passion? And find your story and share it, because it matters. Thank you.
To close our time together, we have a brief activity. We'd like you to spend a few minutes thinking about and writing in response to 2 questions. We would ask you to write the answers and send them in an email to wildhope@plu.edu. Everyone who sends an email will receive something from the center in return. Are you ready? Here's the first question. Think about your passions, interests, and the needs you see in the community and/or world. Where do these intersect? Okay, here's the second question. How can the community at PLU help you live your story? How do you hope your engagement with the PLU community will help you co-create your story? The Wild Hope Center for Vocation is located in the Nesvig Center next to the Anderson University Center. We are practicing social distancing and taking extra care with our health during COVID, so we encourage you to reach us online. First, we invite you to go to our website. If you'd like to talk about your ideas about vocation or ask questions and get more resources for thinking about all of this, go ahead and make an appointment with us through the Center for Student Success. I will respond to you, or my colleague and friend, Laurie Weiner, will respond to you. You can also find us on Instagram. Again, welcome to PLU, happy orientation, and go Loots!